What is good, Tsla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with the overall market, what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. What news just came out that's very important for the markets, and what the news is saying about Tesla. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in just about 6 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market so far. Looking at Tesla's things looking relatively weak at this 256 level, continuing to sell off very hard after the new policy changes that came out by the Fed. Now, this led to the market selling off, the market becoming a lot more fearful, and big changes to what the Fed was saying relative to before. The question is, what news just came out? Why is the market looking this way? And how are the stocks looking from a technical standpoint? I'm going to break all of this down in just a couple of minutes. First, let's talk about this news. Initial jobless claims came out today in the morning, just a couple of minutes ago, at 201,000. This is much lower than what the forecast was. We wanted this to be between 222 and 225,000. So why is this important? This is telling us that the job sector is a little bit hotter or a little bit stronger than expected, and that's not what the Fed wants. The Fed is saying that the unemployment numbers are just not what they want them to be, and this could be a factor driving inflation up, according to the Fed, of course. I don't think this is the only factor, of course, and they never said that either. But I mean, to some extent, there's some truth behind that, but not like I don't think it's like to the same extent that the Fed is saying. That's like my honest opinion. But anyways, it doesn't matter what I think. What matters more is what the Fed is saying about these numbers, and it's not what they want. And this could incentivize them to be a lot more hawkish, right? The Fed to raise rates even more. Now, we also have existing home sales coming out 30 minutes after the market opens. Could cause some volatility, but maybe nothing too crazy. And that's pretty much it for the day. Tomorrow, we have a Fed speaker and PMI coming out, but we're not going to worry about tomorrow just yet. The data is going to be kind of cool from this point on until tomorrow. When it comes to news affecting the markets, the Fed has come out and said that they're going to likely give us another rate hike, and they may have to hold rates up higher for longer than expected, right? That is very important because this is different from what the Fed said earlier, and it's changing the overall view of monetary policy. The Fed also is hinting at a different change in their economic projections, and that is they may have to continue to raise rates for longer, and they may have to, do what they have to do until they get to their goal. They're expecting it to take a little bit longer than expected to get inflation down to that 2% level. That is once again a little different from what they said from before. This is causing the market to panic a bit. There's this news coming out involving Apple. I did talk about this yesterday about how Apple ended up abandoning the efforts they had when trying to capitalize on the buzz from retail by making some kind of like investing feature. So this was bad news for them, which led Apple to selling off yesterday. We had some IPOs that came out. We even had like Klaviyo and announcing its debut on the NASDAQ, or I'm sorry, on the New York Stock Exchange on Wednesday. We had some more IPOs, which is worth noting. We have more strikes going on for the UAW and also other parts of the world. This is very important. So we're going to be watching to see how this affects companies for longer. But besides that, the most important thing is going to be the Fed, at least for the time being. So the fear from the Fed, the fear from these like changes to monetary policy are still hitting the markets. The market is still pricing all of this in. You can see the headlines saying that stocks sell off after Powell crushes the rate cut hopes. That is true. The Fed is now saying they're not going to cut rates this year. They're going to likely do it sometime next year, but only just a couple of them. And this could all obviously change next year. But so far, this is leading to fear. Now, as far as Tesla goes, I didn't see any major news that came out this morning at the time I am recording this, except for the fact that Tesla and Elon Musk are reportedly under DOJ probe over perks and transactions. And there's been some talk about the fact that, I think it says it right here, that Elon Musk may have used personal transactions and mixed them with, business funds. There's a possibility of that, but no guarantees about it. I'm not going to promise anything about it, but I just wanted to let you guys know that at the end of the day, the DOJ is still on a probe. Tesla and Elon Musk are still on a probe by the DOJ, so this could affect them to some extent. But usually nothing too insane usually comes out of this. It should be okay, as Elon Musk did say it was ridiculous in the past. For now, we're going to be looking at Tesla. How on earth are things looking? So on the 4-hour time frame, Tesla's looking more bearish. It's trying to hold this 255 support very close to our 200 EMA on the 4-hour time frame at 254.47. However, overall, it's still looking more bearish. Even if we do make a tiny little bounce, this still looks very weak, and there's a high probability Tesla is going to eventually come down to fill this gap and make its way down towards 250. It looks more bearish overall. Could we try to bounce off either the 200 EMA or 255? We could get a very small dead cat bounce. It may be very, very minor, but overall, I do think the odds favor Tesla selling off because we have very aggressive selling right now, and we're going to likely fill this gap as it's making lower highs and lower lows, and the momentum is shifting heavily in favor of the bears. Yes, Tesla's a little bit oversold right here. It's very close to oversold territory, but there is room for downside. So we're going to be watching this 250 support. Watch for a little attempt to bounce of 255 before this thing continues to sink lower. I do believe there's still more downside coming nonetheless for Tesla over the next few days. Looking at SPY, it's not even bouncing. SPY is looking very, very weak. A very tiny little bounce right here, but it's still looking weak. It's sold off for almost the entire pre-market session. When looking at it, it's approaching this 433 support. If that fails, this 431 is on the table. Not to mention like the 429, 430, the entire zone. We look like we're heading towards 433 if we break below 434.5, and overall it looks very, very bearish on the 4-hour time frame. We're starting to see a couple of buyers trying to defend their positions off 434.5, but overall the trend looks very weak. So even if we do get a tiny dead cat bounce, we're going to likely see this thing maybe retest 435.5 or so before maybe rejecting, and this could most definitely still come back down to 433. It still looks more bearish overall, not really much of a sign of a bounce. Aapl is currently at 173.8. It's continuing to sell off. There's no sign of a bounce yet. We're going to be watching 173.5, then 172.5 below that, followed by 171, which is where we have critical support. It looks more bearish, so watch it as this thing is continuing to sell off. Be very careful. It looks more bearish overall. The QQQ is looking more bearish too. We actually hit below 360, which is not the best of signs. We're at 360 right now, but we did touch below it earlier. And we have two critical supports to be watching for. If we break below 360, you're going to be watching this 35. We have 354 below that. Technically, I think we also had support at 357. So 357 and 354 are two important supports to be watching for. We're going to be watching to see if the QQQ could hold those. As of right now, we're continuing to sell off and we're trying to hold 360. So watch that if we end up breaking below 360. It does look more weak overall. Looking at Nvda, it's continuing to sell off. We're currently at 412. We're very close to some critical support at 410. But if that fails us, if we get below 410, there's a good chance we're going to get very close to 403. This thing is looking very weak, continuing to sell off quite hard. It is oversold in a way, but that doesn't always matter. Stocks can always still sell off more. And Nvidia is looking relatively weak, so we have to be very careful right now. It's down almost 3%. It's down 2.28%. I mean, in the pre-market, it just continued to sell off throughout almost the entire pre-market. So watch this 410 support. If that fails us, we're likely going to see this thing sinking towards 403. That is a real possibility. So please be very careful with that. Looking at Microsoft, it looks more bearish. We were talking about this potentially selling off. We're currently at 318. We're going to be watching this thing attempt to hold support right about there. It's at support right now. If that fails us, we could see Microsoft come all the way back down to about this 315 support, then 311. So we're going to be watching this all very, very carefully if 318 holds or not. Finally, when it comes to other things like the VIX, I just want to mention that the VIX on the daily chart, it's above its 50 EMA. If I switch to the daily, you guys can see that also on the 4-hour, it's above it. Basically, that shows us signs that the market's on a downtrend, so be very careful. The VIX is now suggesting there's more downside to come. The dollar is looking strong as it's making higher highs and higher lows, continuing to break out. That's another bearish signal for the stock market, and other tickers like Meta and Amazon are continuing to sell off. So the bottom line is, guys, the market's looking very, very weak. Be very careful. Tesla has this big gap down here below that could get filled very soon. It is trying to hold 255 for the time being, but there are no guarantees it's going to hold for long. All right, so please be prepared, do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next video. Be prepared, guys. I really appreciate all of you. Be ready for what's about to come with some high volatility. Look for small little bounces before the market likely continues lower, and as of right now, technicals look a lot more bearish. Thank you for listening. Have a good one, and peace out.